Good evening. Welcome to the regular council session. It is Thursday, October the 19th, 2023, 7 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. Remind members of disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Councilor Froese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna bow out of 12.1B.
12.1B. Thank you. Any other disclosures? Okay, seeing none. I believe there are no review of items not listed on the agenda.
No, that's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Any announcements this evening? Deputy Mayor Weisler.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I apologize, I'm not there tonight, a little under the weather, but grateful for the technology so that I can join you. Just one quick announcement, if I may. One of BAM's mighty volunteers has passed away today. Mr. Earl Shea. He loved Port Burwell, and he was a huge supporter of local initiatives. I first had the opportunity to volunteer with Earl back in 2008 when we started the Otter Valley Chamber of Commerce together, and we volunteered right up until this past year. We partnered together and presented to the local public school just this June, and Earl was a contributing member of the Waterfront Advisory Committee. So he will be greatly missed in our council chambers and our community. And so I'd just like to extend a heartfelt condolences to his wife, Michelin, and his family.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. You're absolutely right. Earl was involved for a long time in BAM, and his counsel will be missed. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, brings us to section 5, presentations. We have Aaron Berlis regarding the Integrity Commissioner report on Code of Conduct complaint and municipal conflict of interest application. Councillor Susan Chilcott. Is Megan Barrett on the line?
Good afternoon, good evening, Your Worship. Can you hear me
Yes.
all right?
We can. Good evening, Megan.
Good evening, thank you. Good evening, members of council. My name is Megan Barrett. I was the lead investigator in this investigation, and I'm the author of the report that is before you this evening. By way of background, Aaron Berlis LLP is the municipality's appointed integrity commissioner under subsection 223.3 sub 1 of the Municipal Act. And it is in that capacity that we received the complaint and the application that are the subject of the report, and that we are here today presenting the report. The application and the complaint, as was indicated, were filed against Councillor Chilcott under BAM's Code of Conduct for members of council. And the application was filed under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, which I'll refer to as the MCIA. Your role this evening as members of council is that of an adjudicator. That means that your role is to make a decision based on the recommendations that are set out in a report from the Integrity Commissioner and set out in this report from this Integrity Commissioner. In this case, there are no recommendations in our report because we determined that there have been no contraventions of the code. With respect to the MCIA application that we received, our process is governed under a different section, section 223.4.1 of the Municipal Act, and that provides that it is the Integrity Commissioner's decision whether or not to make an application to a judge about the alleged contraventions. This is not council's decision, it's ours. And in this case, we have decided not to make an application given our finding that there was no contravention. So what all of this means is that given our findings and conclusions, my presentation this evening is for informational purposes only. I'm going to provide a short presentation on the report, and after that, I'll be available to answer any questions that may arise about our process, about our procedure, and any other related matters. And I'd like to be clear at the outset in terms of the types of questions that are appropriate in this context. Council's role is limited when you're receiving a report from the Integrity Commissioner. This is not an opportunity for you to question the investigation, the factual determinations that were made in the report, and the conclusions that are set out in the report. So it's a bit of a different function. I just want to be clear at the outset what it is we're here to do this evening. So turning to the report itself, and the complaint, the report relates to, as I said, a formal code of conduct complaint and a formal MCIA application that were filed against Councillor Chilcott relating to her relationship with the Straffordville Hall Foundation. So specifically, the complaint and the application allege that Councillor Chilcott contravened the code and the MCIA when she participated in discussions and voted in respect of Council's consideration of the proposed expansion of the Straffordville Community Centre. And there's an important timing piece to mention here that's in both the MCIA and the Act and is repeated in Bayham's Code of Conduct. An application or a complaint can only be made within 6 weeks of an applicant becoming aware of an alleged contravention. And that really narrows down the scope of what was before us as part of our investigation. So the MCIA portion of the investigation was focused on the April 6th, 2023 council meeting. And that's the meeting at which you considered a report from the CAO that provided several options to address the funding shortfall for the planned expansion of the Straffordville Community Centre. The code complaint was filed before the MCIA application, so we also considered events and conduct that occurred in March 2023. The councillor's alleged contraventions of the code and the MCIA arise because she's a founding member of the Straffordville Hall Foundation, though she resigned her position on the board of directors before she was elected as a member of council in 2018, and the fact that her family members continue to have close ties with the organization. Importantly, her spouse currently, or at least at the time of the investigation, did hold a leadership role with the foundation. The Straffordville Hall Foundation, as I'm sure many, if not all of you are aware, was established to ensure the continuing operations of the community center, which it achieves through fundraising and by managing the operations of the center. The organization is a party to a formal operating and maintenance lease agreement with the municipality in respect of that function. So there's a more detailed review of the relevant background facts starting at page 4 of the report, which I'll commend to your reading. And the specific allegations in the complaint and application are that the councillor contravened section 5 of the MCIA and sections 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.7D, 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3 of the code. And I'll get into that in a moment. So in terms of process, our role as Integrity Commissioner is to act as a neutral and impartial investigator. We conducted this investigation in accordance with our authority as Integrity Commissioner under the Municipal Act and the Code of Conduct. So as part of our investigation, we provided the councillor with a notice of the complaint outlining the allegations and the issues that were raised. The councillor was afforded an opportunity to respond in writing, and she did so and made submissions. And we took her response into consideration in preparing a report. We also provided a copy of the councillor's submissions to the complainant. And the complainant or the applicant had an opportunity to provide submissions responding to the councillor's response, and they did so. We have similarly taken these submissions from the complainant or applicant into consideration in preparing our report. So all submissions that we received are reflected and referenced in the report. So the report itself, I'm not going to go in detail through the whole thing. It speaks for itself. What it does is it distills and synthesizes the facts and the issues that were raised as part of the complaint and application. And there's quite a lot of material filed with respect to this application and complaint. It assesses those facts and issues against the framework that's established under the MCIA and also under the code. And then the report makes findings and draws conclusions based on this analysis. As I indicated earlier, we concluded that the counselor did not contravene the MCIA at the April 6, 2023 council meeting. And so I'll speak a little bit about the MCIA analysis. The MCIA, and I should note section 6 of your code, deals only with conflicts of interest that are pecuniary, and that means financial in interest. This interest can be direct. So for example, the member's personal pecuniary interest, or indirect, and the Act tells us the circumstances that give rise to an indirect pecuniary interest. So for example, if the council member is a member of a body that has a pecuniary interest, that gives rise to an indirect pecuniary interest on the part of the member. Additionally, a member is deemed to have the same interest in a matter as their spouse or child. That's all set out in the Act. In this case, because of Councillor Chilcott's spouse's role as a director in the Straffordville Hall Foundation, Councillor Chilcott is deemed to have a pecuniary interest in any matter in which the Straffordville Hall Foundation has a pecuniary interest. So this is a deemed indirect pecuniary interest. So what we needed to determine as part of our investigation was whether the Straffordville Hall Foundation had a pecuniary interest in the item that was before council at the April 6th meeting. If you recall, at that meeting, you received a report from the CAO that set out options to address the funding shortfall for the planned expansion of the Straffordville Hall Community Center. Sorry, the Straffordville Community Center. And your decision on that day was not about whether to go ahead with the construction project, but the scope of the work. So the decision that you made about whether to go ahead with the construction project at all, whether to apply for grant monies, the decisions or trade-offs that you made in terms of other community centers, for example, or other funding for other like recreational facilities in the municipality, that was made many years ago. And with Straffordville Community Center, that decision was made in 2019. That initial decision is clearly outside of the scope of our statutory authority to review in the context of this application. I think that's really important to note here. The matter that was before council for discussion and decision was whether and how to scope the planned project. So council, if you recall, voted to approve a reduction in the project scope, and that included removing a planned covered pavilion, a planned lighting upgrade, and a decision not to install a new concrete pad. So there's no dispute here on the facts that Councillor Chilcott participated in this discussion. She moved the resolution, in fact, and she voted on the item. Now, turning to the Straffordville Hall Foundation and their pecuniary interest, they have a facility operation agreement with the municipality, which allows it a non-exclusive right to use the center at no cost, provided that the funds or ends of the use are for the benefit of the municipality. Taking a broad approach to interpreting pecuniary interest, we concluded that the foundation does have a pecuniary interest in the scope of the expansion of the center, because if there are more or less amenities or updates, then there's a possibility that the value of the foundation's right to use the center rent-free could go up or down. It's a bit of a tenuous conclusion, But it's important to also understand this conclusion in the context of the MCIA as a whole, which also sets out several circumstances that create exceptions to the general rule in Section 5 of that act that members can't vote on matters in which they have a pecuniary interest. And one of those exceptions is if the member's interest is so remote or insignificant as not to be reasonably regarded as likely to influence a member. So in coming to our conclusion in the report that this matter was remote and insignificant and that the exception applied, we took direction from the Court of Appeal, who considered this question in the context of a deemed indirect pecuniary interest in the Ferry case. And in that case, the court found that the analysis of this exception needs to focus on the proximity and significance of the counselor's own pecuniary interest in the context of all of the circumstances. So as part of this assessment, we found that first, neither the counselor or her spouse directly received any financial benefit from the foundation. And secondly, there was no evidence presented that the foundation's financial interest in the community center would be materially affected, whether the expansion occurred as originally envisioned in 2019 or in its modified form as endorsed by council on October 6th. So it was too speculative, and that's what gave rise to this idea of remote and insignificant. There was also an allegation that the counselor had a direct pecuniary interest in the community center's expansion because of the location of her home. It's close to the center. We found that there was not enough evidence in the complaint to support this allegation, and particularly when we were looking through the lens of council's decision about whether to reduce the scope of the project and looking at where the center was located in the context of I don't know if it's a village, the village of Stratfordville, or the populated area around the community center. With respect to, so that's the code, that's the MCIA analysis. With respect to the alleged contraventions under the code, I'll speak first to part 6, which deals with conflicts of interest. The provisions in your code track very closely with the requirements under the MCIA. What your code does is adopt the obligations under the MCIA as ethical duties. And because of that, it's not appropriate or possible, in our view, for us as integrity commissioners to conduct a separate analysis of these interests in the context of a code complaint. Again, we've taken direction from the Court of Appeal in a different case, which held that the MCIA is a complete code for dealing with pecuniary interests. So that's the analysis that we needed to defer to here, and that's what we did. The other part of the code complaint alleges contraventions of the general duties that are set out in part 5 of the code. Just as a brief refresher, the ones that were engaged in the context of this complaint was, first of all, the duty of members to abide by all applicable legislation, policies, and procedures. And in this case, the complaint did not allege any specific contraventions of any specific legislation, policy, or procedure, so we found there weren't grounds to proceed. Another section of the code that was alleged to have been contravened is the duty of members to conduct their dealings with each other in a way that maintains public confidence in the position to which they've been elected. And this code provision is about conduct between council members. Because there were no allegations in the complaint about the councilor's conduct towards other members, there were no grounds to uphold this allegation. The code also provides that it's a duty of members to serve and be seen to serve their constituents in a conscientious and diligent manner. So when we're faced with a code provision like this one and an alleged contravention of a code provision like this one, the first thing that we need to do as the integrity commissioner is ask, what does this actually mean? Because we need to be careful when we're interpreting this type of provision, and we need to do it, make sure that we're doing it in a reasonable way. Otherwise, these types of provisions that are pretty general can lose all meaning. So we took an approach that we did in other cases where we've had similar, considered similar types of provisions. And we found that conscientiousness and diligence means conduct that shows a high degree of care and thoroughness in carrying out one's duty. So that's the bar that we need to meet. The opposite of that would be or that you need to meet. The opposite of that would be conduct that is careless, indiscreet, or thoughtless. We found that the counselor's conduct in this case, with respect to her connection with the Straffordville Hall Foundation, and in particular in the context of that 6-week window, looking at March and April 2023, did not contravene this section. The last section that we considered was section 5.7, which imposes a duty on members to exercise their power and discharge their official duties in accordance with a number of guiding principles. And one of those guiding principles is to do so truly, faithfully, and impartially to the best of your knowledge and ability. So we found that Councillor Chilcott took steps to attempt to avoid a conflict of interest in this case. Notably, she resigned from her position on the board of the Straffordville Hall Foundation before her election as a member of council. There's also evidence that she sought advice from municipal staff about whether she had a conflict under the MCIA in advance of the April 6th meeting. And that was in response to concerns that were raised by members of the community. I think that an important takeaway for all of you in this context, and moving ahead into other instances, is that one of our statutory obligations as Integrity Commissioner is to provide advice in writing to members of council about their obligations under the MCIA that you can then rely on. In this case, just to be clear, we did not find that there was a contravention under the MCIA, but given that it's just taking me 10 minutes to explain how we got there, you can see it was not a straightforward analysis. There is a lot of case law, and there are a lot of nuances, or there can be a lot of nuances to the MCIA analysis. Sometimes it's pretty clear, sometimes it's not. That is why, in my view, the legislature, and this is this kind of circumstance that the legislature was contemplating when they amended the Municipal Act to include the accountability and transparency provisions, and included an advice-giving function as part of the Integrity Commissioner's duties under the Municipal Act. That you, as members of council, have a personal obligation under the MCIA, but in recognition of the complexity of that statute, you are entitled to write to your Integrity Commissioner and ask for advice, and you can rely on that written advice as long as you've provided all of the relevant facts when requesting the advice. Turning back to section 5.7, in this case, when everything's taken together, we concluded that Councillor Chilcott did not contravene section 5.7 of the code. So as I stated at the beginning of this presentation, since we did not find any contravention, our report contains no recommendations. Therefore, council is not entitled to impose a penalty under the Municipal Act. That being said, I'm happy to stay and answer any questions that you may have about what I've just told you, or about our process. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Barrett. Does anyone have any questions for this? Just a question for you, Ms. Barrett. Under process, should Councillor Chilcott wish, she could make a statement if she wished at this time?
That's correct.
It's up to you, Councillor. If you wish to make a statement, you can. If not, you don't have to.
Yeah, I didn't have anything prepared to say. I just, you know, in everything that I do, I try to do it honestly and straightforward. And I never once thought that voting to improve a community center could be a conflict of interest or a code of conduct violation. And I don't typically go to send letters or whatever to the integrity commissioner, because it does cost our community money, and it's my responsibility to keep that as low as possible. And so I went to staff and came up with the answers that I had and did everything in the way that I thought should be done.
All right, thank you for that. Again, opening it up to the floor. Do you have any questions regarding the report? Counselor Froze,
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment?
I believe it's appropriate.
Volunteers in a small community like ours are hard to come by. And my goodness, good job, Dan and Sue. I'm proud of you. Keep volunteering.
Thank you.
And I agree with the money portion of a process like this that taxpayers pay. So good job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask, Ms. Barrett, you can tell me, you don't have to answer. What did this investigation cost the ratepayers of BAM?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The total cost, the total estimated cost of this investigation, including my attendance this evening, is approximately $13,500 plus HST.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just asked to put it in context because although I do respect the role and the office of the Integrity Commissioner, and then particularly in keeping the municipal workplace safe, but just to make sure that it's understood that there are costs for doing this. And if there are legitimate complaints, yes, avail yourself and make those complaints. But there are times when I'm wondering if the Integrity Commission's office might be used for more vexatious purpose. And it's very unfortunate that it may be used for political gain, and that's not its role. I'm not trying to put any barriers in place for anyone who has a complaint from coming forward. I'm just saying, be very conscious of what you're doing. That's all. Hopefully I wasn't out of line there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and your worship, I should note that there are provisions in your code of conduct and in accordance with our practice as integrity commissioners, where we have the authority, actually we have the obligation, and we certainly exercise it to summarily dismiss complaints or terminate investigations where we find that there are no grounds or insufficient grounds for an investigation, or if we find that a complaint is frivolous or vexatious. And that's certainly something that we do all the time and have done in this municipality as well. So there's a balancing for our role. We don't investigate everything, and we try to be judicious and recognize that these are public resources that we're using for our investigation, and focus on the ones where there are issues that we think need to be investigated.
Well, thank you very much for those comments, and I really appreciate it. Okay. If there's nothing further, then again, thank you very much for your attendance tonight, Ms. Barrett.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
We have a motion that reads that the presentation by Eric Bearless regarding Integrity Commissioner report on Code of Conduct complaint and municipal conflict of interest application, Councillor Susan Chilcott, be received for information. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Emerson and Councillor Froze will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, and thank you for refraining on that. Moving on with section 7, adoption of the minutes. We have the minutes from the special council meeting held October the 3rd, 2023, and the regular council meeting held October the 5th, 2023. I hope everyone's had the opportunity to peruse the minutes. If there are no errors or omissions, I would entertain a mover and seconder for the following. That the minutes of the special council meeting held October the 3rd, 2023, and the minutes of the regular council meeting held October the 5th, 2023, be approved as presented. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Chilcott, Deputy Mayor Weisler will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no motions or notice of motion. Moving down to section 9, open forum. I understand that Val Donald wishes to come forward. And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, your worship and council. Fact. The municipality receives 9 cents out of every tax dollar collected, and the rest 91 cents the federal and provincial government receive. Yet the municipality is responsible for providing and maintaining 60% of the infrastructure in Bayham. Our core infrastructure needs alone currently exceed 30 million. There have been unnecessary additional costs borne by the municipality that have come at the hands of some of our own residents. $13,500 has been incurred by the municipality for integrity commissioner investigations that were concerning Councillor Chilcott, and that these complaints proven to be found no breaches in her conduct. Another report requiring the Ministry of Environment to investigate our municipal works activity, all covered by sanctioned ministry certificates. And another where residents cornered and questioned the municipality's consultant with their own inquiries while the municipality was footing the bill.
Yep.
This money would have covered 2.5 streetlights or about a half of the monthly debt servicing costs for Project Ojibwa, sidewalk improvements of 50 meters, and planter boxes of 100 to 150, and seed money for the Moby Mat. I ask how much of our tax dollars are being used on frivolities, and to whom are the people responsible for this senselessness accountable to? Is there a mechanism that could build back some of these extra costs that have been borne by every Bayham taxpayer? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on with section 10, recreation, culture, tourism. Excuse me, we aren't doing that, are we? We're moving on with section 11, physical services and emergency services. 11.1 correspondence, 11.2. I have to break this up a little more. I'm getting lost in it. 11.2 reports to council. Report BL 0723 by Stephen Miller, bylaw enforcement officer regarding third-party bylaw enforcement, tenant security. I assume you're taking that this evening, Thomas?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Miller is over in Malahide tonight presenting to council. So this report comes forward regarding the third-party bylaw enforcement arrangement we have with Tenant Security Group, providing support off hours for our bylaw program with particular emphasis on seasonal enforcement. So this bylaw was adopted in late 2022 and council opted for a 6-month extension, which would have taken us through the end of the year. Based on discussion with the bylaw enforcement officer during his tenure with Bayham so far, we've been using Tenet mostly for off hours and weekend enforcement. The majority of which has been in Port Burwell for parking and beach enforcement. However, now that the East Beach is outside of peak tourism season, the need for third-party support has diminished. And in addition, we're pleased to report so far that bylaw enforcement has seen a positive uptick in the closure rate in Bayham and in Malahide as well. The statistics are provided and that Bayham's closure rate so far is 85%, which is a substantial improvement over last year. And this has been done the vast majority by our new bylaw enforcement officer without very much in the way of third-party support. So based on the above statistics and in discussion with Mr. Miller, staff believe that there is no need to incur further costs associated with any third-party bylaw enforcement services moving forward. There may be some seasonal need, but we are looking into some other ways of providing that service, particularly for next beach season. So I expect more information to come forward to council in this regard. So to date, staff have taken steps to decrease the number of third-party serviceable hours permitted in the agreement to 0. And it is expected this will save BAM approximately $7,000 over the balance of the year and will allow us to accordingly reduce the budgeted bylaw expenditures in 2024. So we would recommend that council support allowing the 6-month extension with Tenant Security Group to expire effective December 31st, 2023. We will duly advise them should council support this, and then we would approach 2024 with some additional information which is forthcoming. So Mr. Mayor, I will leave it with you and council to discuss.
Well, thank you very much for that report. Does anyone have any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report. I have to thank staff for the statistics. However, I'm a little surprised. Could I just clarify that the complaints are the ones that were collected? Is this typical of BAM for the number of bylaw complaints that we're getting? Or is this the added piece from last year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, well, I don't have the detailed statistics. What I do understand is that some of the complaints in BAM are ones that had been inherited by our current bylaw enforcement officer. So they were outstanding at the time of hire. So these would be indicative of those complaints which were inherited and the ones that have come in since. So the number itself, if you're looking at 68 complaints over 3 months, is high, but there are some that predate that 3-month period.
Thank you. Supplementary, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Will reports like this continue to come to council? I am very interested in continuing to see these numbers as we move along.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It is expected that the next planned report will be early 2024. That's the annual bylaw report. And in discussion with Mr. Miller, we have been devising some additional statistics to include in that report. So that's a short way or a longer way of saying that, yes, council will continue to be provided with the general aggregate statistics on bylaw enforcement.
Thank you very much.
Just to add into that or build on that question, Thomas, are we looking at an annual statistical report? Or are we going to be getting some semi-annual quarterly reports? What's envisioned?
We have not envisioned any change from the annual report. However, should council direct more frequent reporting, we can provide that at direction. This will come at obviously some administrative staff burden from our perspective to be able to get that in front of council, but we will do whatever council directs. I'm pleased to do so.
All right. Yes, Councilor Froze.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just, it's more of a curiosity thing, like in Bayham, we're more than double the amount of complainants than Malahide. And I'm just wondering if there's something wrong with us here, or can we find out if there's something wrong with us here?
Would you like to field that one, Thomas?
I'm not touching that one.
Councilor Froze, I think what was outlined through some of the discussion is that some of the complaints that under the BAM portfolio are carryover from before Stephen was hired.
I understand, but
And-
they would have probably put the same for the Malahide numbers, correct?
Malahide did not have the same active bylaw, well, it's not active, the same level of bylaw enforcement previously. If I understand correctly, that it was off the corner of the CBO's desk, roughly 15% of his time. Whereas in BAM, that was 30% of Harry's time. So, yeah,
Just to
we'll see how it balances out over the year.
Mr. Mayor, just to add to that, you're correct. So Harry was putting in about 30% of his hours, whereas as we understand it, Malahide had about 15% of the building official doing bylaw enforcement. And what we've come to realize as well, trying to harmonize as best we can a number of these policies. We are further ahead than Malahide was when it came to having bylaw policies and forms in place. So Stephen is working with Malahide to establish those as well. That I would assume is a reason why we have a number of carryover complaints that are caught in these statistics. Outside of that, I have no inference into why the numbers are different.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just kind of to finish my thought process from earlier, I would propose, if I may, that we include an extra report, so 2 reports a year. And the reason I make that proposal is that as part of my role with the AMO Association, something that we've been studying quite closely is shared service agreements and the need for them and the reason behind them. And so I would think that if we had even just another one extra report, it would allow some data for collecting purposes and reporting purposes as we move forward in this shared service agreement. So I would just put that forward for consideration.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Just quick comment through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, if council is interested in having a second report, then we can look at having reporting in Q1 and Q3 of a given calendar year, and we can start that next year. Pleased to do it if that's what council's direction is.
In terms of data collection, I'm thinking the aggregate data would suffice for what you're getting at, but I'm thinking a quicker report would give you more indication of what the activity is going on. And I think maybe that's more germane to what you're looking for. I think. Is that what council, is council interested in seeing like a mid-year report on bylaw statistics? Or are you satisfied with a single aggregate? As explained, there will be a bit of an administrative cost, but yeah. You want to see how it bears fruit for Malahide in 6 or 8 months?
It would be interesting to see, right? And as long as us as council and staff are prepared to do something about it, if these numbers keep being way out of whack, I think, as in the previous report regarding Susan, is every call costs taxpayers money.
Yeah.
So just another thing to consider as we move along.
So a mid-year report would satisfy you, Deputy Warden, or Deputy Warden, excuse me, Deputy Mayor? Getting
Thank you
mad.
through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and I would be prepared to put that proposal forward, yes, or that motion.
All right. Are you ready to go for that one, Scribe?
Sure, I've added it to the rest of the proposed motion in front of us. Would you like me to read it all?
Please do.
That report BL 07/23 regarding third-party bylaw enforcement, tenant security be received, and that council support allowing the 6-month extension with tenant security group to expire effective December 31st, 2023, and that staff be directed to provide a bylaw enforcement report to council twice a year.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weisler. Anyone willing to second? Counselor Froese. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Section 12, Development Services, 12.1 Correspondence, and 12.1.1 to receive for information. Item A, Notice of Adoption regarding Official Plan Amendment Number 34. Item B, Notice of Public Meeting regarding Proposed Zoning Bylaw Amendment ZBA 1223 Bonneville Farmland, Ontario. Is that 4 Inc? Any questions regarding the correspondence? If not, a mover and seconder for the following, that items 12.1.1 and B be received for information. Do I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Chilcott. Deputy Mayor Weisler, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 12.2, reports to council. Item A, report DR 0623 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent, regarding the third quarter drainage report. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. So the third quarter report, drainage report before you tonight is some of the status updates in regards to drain maintenance and new drains currently ongoing or completed. So for new drains, the municipality has 3 ongoing petitions right now in the design stage. These are all for conditions severance. We have 1 drain in process of being rebuilt currently, as we'll move on to that later. And for maintenance, under the maintenance, I've been working with Norfolk throughout the summer to complete 6 boundary drains that run pretty much from the lake right up to our to Heritage Line. It was a really successful project. We brushed and cleaned out 6 different drains all along that boundary, and Norfolk was great to work with throughout that project. We had 2 other minor repairs to 2 different drains. These have also been completed since, and ongoing with some investigation into some maintenance issues on 3 other drains. So with the crops coming off, pretty much we're probably going to get a lot of phone calls here shortly, and any questions about any of these, I'm happy to help.
Thank you for that report, Steve. Does anyone have any questions? It looks like it's been a busy drainage year. Okay, seeing none, we have a motion that reads the report DR 0623 regarding the 3rd quarter drainage report be received for information. Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Emerson and Counselor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Item B, report DR 0723 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent, regarding petition for drainage, Frank Wall, 1985763 Ontario, Inc. Steve.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report is a petition before you. This petition is for the land situated at 8341 Sandytown Road. The petition was filed with the clerk on October 4th, 2023, signed by Frank Wall. And this is in regards to the Sandytown subdivision development. As you know, the lands for the subdivision are located at 8341 Sandytown, and they front on to Stewart Road. So for the subdivision, outlet for the stormwater management has to have an outlet, legal outlet. So the proposed 39 proposed lot development that is currently being looked at, they needed a larger outlet than the current one that's on site. So it's kind of a ditch that it runs into at the moment. So this is why this petition was sent out, and it's currently before you. Staff definitely recommend moving forward with this. If council wishes to move forward, staff recommend hiring Spreets and Associate for to conduct the report and on-site meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? Fairly straightforward. All right. Motion would read that report DR 0723 regarding petition for drainage, Frank Wall, 1985763 Ontario, Inc. 8341 Sandytown Road be received. And that the council of the corporation municipality of Bayham acknowledges the filing with the clerk of the petition for drainage works from Frank Wall, and that council wishes to proceed with this matter and appoint Spreet Associates Limited engineers to prepare a report on the proposed drainage area pursuant to section 5 and section 8.1 of the Drainage Act for council's consideration. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Emerson will move and Councillor Froese will second. All in favor? That's carried. Item C, report DR 0823 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent, regarding the Hampton Drain Improvements Contract Award. Steve.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is my good news report for you tonight. The Hampton Drain is moving forward. So the final reading of the bylaw on October 5th had no appeals, which means the Hampton Drain can proceed with the construction of the rebuild or the reconstruction of the drain. So staff issued the tender for the Hampton Drain rebuild on September 26th and closed the tender on October 10th, 2023. Staff received 5 bids at the opening. And to keep in mind, The estimated project value within the report, 220242 from Streets Associate was 272,000 plus HST. So the 5 contractors that bid, number 1 came in, was Van Bree at 242,970. Robinson's Farm Drainage came in at 235,200. Cassidy Construction came in at 253,729. Pros Excavating came in at 237,865 and 87 and change. And PBR Excavating came in at 204,149. This is also before HST. So PBR Excavating was a low bid, came in 28% lower than the estimated price as per report. PBR Excavating has worked, I've worked, previous drainage superintendent worked with PBR on a couple other drains with us, had great working relationship with them. Staff have no concerns with their work or moving ahead with this. I do want to note, there was one small error noted in section 5 or item 5 of the report under the PBR was the work date between October 30th and November 30th, 2023, not 2024. Good. So saying that, yes, the contractor is pretty excited to get going on it. Much sooner than anticipated, but it works well with the crops being off to get this completed this fall and before we have our wet season. So section 59.1 of the Drainage Act states the contract price, if exceeds 133% of the estimated price, council will be required to hold a meeting to deal with the necessary modifications. Obviously, since this was well under the bid, we can move ahead and start construction if council wishes to accept PBR's award. Any questions?
Thank you for that, Steve. Does anyone have any questions? And it is a good news story. Okay, seeing none, we'll need a mover and seconder for the following. A report DR 0823 regarding Hampton Drain Improvements Contract Award be received for information. And that the council of the corporation of the municipality of Bayham accepts the tender for the Hampton Drain Improvements as submitted by PBR Excavating Inc. in the amount of $204,149 plus HST, with work to commence on or before October 30th, 2023, and to be completed on or before November 30th, 2023. And that a bylaw to authorize the execution of contract documents with PBR Excavating Inc. be presented to council for enactment. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weisler. I see Councillor Chilcott. Will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item D, report DS 5523 by Scott Sutherland, Chief Building Official regarding third quarter report. Good evening, Scott.
Evening, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Scott was unable to attend tonight, so I will be covering the building services report. The report follows the same format as previous reports considered by council regarding quarterly updates. The statistics in the report demonstrate that the number of permits, permit fees, and construction values are all down markedly from similar periods of time in the previous 2 calendar years to the tune of approximately 60%. This is indicative of continued pressure on the building industry due to inflation and interest rates impacting building projects. We also issued no commercial or industrial permits in Q3. Generally, these ones are the ones that provide a higher permit fee to the municipality and buoy our revenue in that regard. So with that, I'll leave it with council to deliberate and just advise that when the treasurer has his Q3 report, there is some additional information from the building department within that report that Treasurer James will discuss. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll leave it with you and council.
All right, thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions regarding the third quarter building report? Okay, seeing none. Do we have one? You may have to shout it out sometimes, Deputy Mayor.
It's okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick question for staff. These numbers obviously are significantly lower. Are we noticing this as an industry-wide thing, or is this a local thing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor to council, I can only speak high level from what I've heard from other municipalities, and it really depends on the size of the municipality and what sort of development they have ongoing. We are seeing decreases across the board, but generally some projects in and around industrial, commercial, and multi-res tend to be a little bit more plentiful. Right now, this seems to be hitting more of the residential industry, and we are heavily residential here when it comes to the development that we see. Unfortunately, I can't offer more, but what I can do is reach out to Scott to find out if he's hearing anything from from his associates and colleagues in other municipalities. But my understanding is that we aren't alone here.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no further questions, the motion would read the staff report DS 5523 regarding third quarter be received for information. I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Emerson will move. Councillor Prose will second. All in favor? That's carried. Item E, report DS 5923 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding official plan amendment number 35, Algar Farms Limited, 53921 Nova Scotia line. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, your worship and council. The report before you is to consider official plan amendment OPA application OPA 0423 with the amendment number 35. The application was submitted by an appointed agent on behalf of Algar Farms Limited, proposing a site-specific official plan amendment on lands located on the south side of Nova Scotia line. Subject lands are designated as agriculture, natural gas reservoir, and they're zoned agriculture A1. The purpose of the amendment is to add a new site-specific subsection to the OP to permit the severance of an existing dwelling made surplus through farm consolidation that does not conform to policy section 2.1.7.1. The effect of the amendment will be to permit the severance of a surplus farm dwelling from a farm parcel where the owner does not own another dwelling within the municipality of Bayham. Public meeting was held on September 21st. There were no presentations, no oral or written public submissions. The Bayham official plan does require a minimum of one dwelling to be owned by the farm operation within the municipality. Algar Farms owns 10 properties in the township of Malahide, 3 of which have homes on them, with the primary farm located at 52892 Vienna line with 2 dwellings. The attached municipal planner's memorandum dated October 3rd does provide the details and rationale for the recommendation to adopt OP amendment number 35. The draft OPA is attached to this report for your consideration. Should council choose to adopt the OPA, it's then forwarded on to the County of Elgin for consideration, as they are the approval authority. So the recommendation is before you. I will leave it with you, your worship.
Thank you very much for that report, Mark. Does anyone have any questions regarding this? I think it's well understood by council what's being sought. Okay. The motion would read that staff report DS 5923 regarding the official plan amendment application OPA 0423 submitted by Algar Farms Limited be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73 Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015, it be pointed out that the public participation meeting held September 21, 2023 associated with this application, there were no presentations and no oral or written public submissions, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution. And that council considers the proposed amendment to add a site-specific text section to the official plan to be consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and in conformity to the Elgin County official plan and the municipality of Bayham official plan. and that bylaw number 2023-078 being an adopting bylaw for official plan amendment number 35 for the purpose of adding a new site-specific subsection to permit the severance of an existing dwelling made surplus through farm consolidation that does not conform to policy section 2.1.7.1, which requires a dwelling to be owned by the farm operation within the municipality, or excuse me, Bayham municipal boundary in the official plan of the municipality of Bayham be presented for enactment. And that adopted official plan amendment number 35 be forwarded to the County of Elgin for approval. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Froze will move. Councillor Emerson will second. All in favor? That's carried. Brings us down to section 13, finance and administration. 13.1 correspondence, 13.11 to receive for information, a number of items. Item A, Town of Greater Napanee regarding guaranteed livable income. Item B, Town of Greater Napanee regarding chronic pain treatments. Item C, Town of Cobourg regarding illegal land use enforcement. Item D, Town of Cobourg regarding catch and release justice in Ontario. Item E, Town of Midland regarding catch and release justice in Ontario. F, County of Brant regarding guaranteed livable income. G, Town of Whitechurch, Stouffville regarding illegal land use enforcement. H, Township of West Lincoln regarding challenges faced by smaller developers in Ontario communities. I, Town of Aurora regarding opposition to strong mayor powers in Aurora. J, Town of Aurora regarding intimate partner violence epidemic. K, Town of Wasaga Beach regarding illegal car rally provincial task force. L, Southwestern Public Health regarding new COVID-19 vaccine formulation for high risk, I assume, community members. M, Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding September 6th, 2023 meeting minutes. N, County of Elgin regarding the October 10th, 2023 County Council highlights. Does anyone have any questions or wish to bring attention to any of these items of correspondence? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder that items 13.1, 1A through N be received for information. Councillor Froze will move, Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. 13.1.2 requiring action. Item A, Laura Edwards regarding Plank Road, Chute Line and Northern Vienna Bridge. Who wishes to speak to this?
I'll take this one, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So correspondence from Laura Edwards is on the agenda regarding some safety concerns. The Northern Bridge in Vienna that you would reach if you're coming down the hill southbound into town. High level notes is that she's wondering if there could be additional safety precautions for southbound traffic. Suggestions as such as like flashing amber lights, danger signage, larger signage or cautionary speed signs. So for some background, a similar matter came to council already on May the 4th of this year. And if I recall, council directed that a speed assessment be done on Plank at Chute Line and the speed zone be reduced from the north end of Vienna up to Light Line. So the latter has definitely been put into place. So it's a 60 southbound until you're basically at the curve downhill, and then it's a 50. I would note that this is a county road. The bridge is county infrastructure. The municipality has really no jurisdiction over this infrastructure. What I would recommend is that if council wishes to move this forward, that it be referred to Elgin County for their consideration. And they would have to make a decision on what sort of additional signage is required.
Discussion. Deputy Mayor Weiser.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I would I would recommend that we do send this to Elgin County for comment. I think that there's been so many issues in that area ongoing, and there's been multiple community residents come forward with concerns of that area that I would like to definitely move this up to Elgin County for comment.
For comment or for consideration?
For both, if I may. Thank you.
Your worship,
Yes, Councilor Emerson.
this is probably like the third time, well, at least the second time now that we asked the county and without fail. So I just really think that we need one of those little flashy speed signs that you see in almost every town in southern Ontario. You see them all over. Langton has them, everything except there's one in Eden, but there's not one in Vienna.
You're talking about one of those that monitor. like
Too
a radar.
fast, whatever, you know, they
The one-
catch me all the time in Eden. I see that sign flash and I slow down, right?
Well, that sign actually belongs with the OPP and it's moved around.
The one that's mounted on the pole.
Yeah, it's not there anymore.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen it.
We really need to do something like that. Like we had the survey,
Mhm.
right? And they said majority of people don't speed, but it's not the majority that we're worried about, right? And they do come there. That corner is slippery. I agree that it has slowed down considerably since you moved the speed sign down at light line. But still, I got passed on the hill the other day when I was doing 50 and someone passed me going down the hill. So we need to maybe have some kind of alert or something. So I don't know what to say, but this is gonna just keep coming up time and time again. So it'd be nice if we could get a response from the county or at least move it forward to the police. Cause we really do need a little more policing in that area. I've seen more speed traps and stuff. But I agree with Laura. I've had that sentiment since, I don't know, more than a year ago. And I think we really need to push on the county to do something with that. Some kind of traffic calming measure.
Councilor Chilcott.
Thank you. I agree. We need to do something. I don't know what can be done because, I mean, these people are, it's not something that they're doing by accident. Most of them are passing, knowing that it's a 50. So putting a sign up that says you're going too fast, they may just use it to see how fast they can go. But we have to figure out what we can do for the people that are actually accidentally going too fast around that curve and getting hurt.
Accidentally. go
Well, you know,
fast
you're,
around that.
You're
you're
distracted.
you're not paying as much attention as you should, which, you know. there are-
But supplemental, like a community safety zone would at least double the fines and worse and increase the impact, right? We make it a community safety zone, then the fines and penalties are twice and are at the discretion of the police.
All right.
So something, one of those two things. needs to be done.
Okay. As staff indicated, it is under county jurisdiction.
Understand.
I think that the recommendation is to forward it to the county if that's something council wishes to do.
I do.
All right. Councilor Chilcott.
Just, can we also request that the police put in one of those signs? Like, I know there's the pros and cons of it.
Yep.
Make that request and then we're.
Or would you like to simultaneously refer this to the Elgin County Police Services Board?
Yeah.
All right. Our clerk is crafting a resolution for us.
Your worship, we have a motion that reads that the correspondence from Laura Edwards regarding Plank Road, Chute Line, and Northern Vienna Bridge be received for information, and that staff be directed to submit this correspondence to Elgin County for comment and consideration, and that staff be directed to submit this correspondence to the Elgin County Police Services Board.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Counselor Emerson will move. Counselor Chilcott will second. All in favor? It's carried. 13.2, reports to council, report TR 1523 by Lauren James, treasurer, regarding the 2023 third quarter variance report. Good evening, Mr. James.
Good evening, your worship.
Before you is the quarterly report for Q3. A little bit different than the prior years. We've added a couple additional columns in the operational and the capital. And added a projected year-end operating deficit or surplus at the time, as well as projected capital deficit or surplus in our Q3 report. So just kind of give a highlight of the staff report. We're projecting right now 120 to 150 in operational deficit. We're trending that way. However, we are trending towards 100,000 or so in capital surplus. Hopefully we land somewhere between small surplus and a small deficit. But we still have a quarter to go and additional expenses and winter coming up. There was a couple of financial headwinds in the past quarter that impacted it. Obviously lower building revenues, the PSAV requirement on the LAS investments, reduced POA or lack of POA revenues for quarters, lower building development, as unfortunately interest rate increases have slowed development. Then expenditure wise, we've had additional winter, we've had additional weather, and we've had additional road expenses that have increased the variance there. Additional maintenance, as well as additional beach grass and waste disposal maintenance and costs for the year. Today. Generally, considering kind of the environment we're in, and take those events aside, had we not have a few other events, we would probably be staring at a small surplus. However, there is a positive silver lining to the quarter. We do have some additional cash on hand, and what that means is this surplus cash from reserves that are already applied that can be reinvested, as well as one GIC from last year was rolled over at a rate of 5.69 in 1 year term. That will not renew next year, that will automatically come up. So staff is looking for direction on how they want to go about investment. Looking for a range of 250 to 500K for a 1 year GIC. That's attached as Appendix C. Appendix A for the operational is noted, and a Appendix B for the capital program, as well as which funds are funding it and completion of project status. If council has any questions, I'm glad to take them.
Well, thank you for that report, Lauren. Does anyone have any questions or observations they wish to share? My comment regarding the investment at the moment, considering the interest rate environment, it seems to me it'd be prudent to put some money back away in order to take advantage of the interest rate. From a cash flow perspective, what are you recommending? You said a range between 250 and 500. What
250.
do you,
So if you were.
what is available?
250 would be the ideal.
Yeah.
5 is possible, but we would have to determine how our collections go at the end of October.
All right,
I'm
so,
looking for direction for 250 today.
all right, that, and that would give you enough then. Yeah, all right, all right,
My only concern, your worship, is there's not another quarterly report until February.
right.
So come back with another staff report for another quarter, it can be done. But I would like direction on a minimum of 250.
Thank you for that. Council? What are your thoughts? I'm inclined to take the treasurer's recommendation. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I do support that recommendation as well. I think if we can put that money away, the minimum 250, that's good.
Does anyone have any other concerns or questions regarding the third quarter report? Quite simply, it is what it is. I agree with you. There were several events that have taken place from an operational point of view, things that were beyond our control, and it happens. Okay. You've added to that? Then you can read it. Thank you. Megan?
And your worship, just a question for staff here. So using the language minimum of 250, are you hoping for language that says maximum of something as well to give flexibility, or leave it at minimum of 250?
You recommended 250.
250 minimum. But I would love 250. If you give me 250, that would be safe.
One number.
Okay. So we have that staff report TR 15/23 regarding 2023 Q3 variance report be received for information. And that staff be directed to invest $250,000 into a 1-year GIC and with RBC, is it? Yes, with RBC.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Counselor Chilcott will move. Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Report CL 1223 by Megan Elliott, clerk, regarding municipal assistance, Port Burwell Legion Remembrance Day Parade. Megan.
Thank you, your worship, through you to council. A quick report here, because we did hear back from the Legion that they are wanting to have their annual parade. We didn't have their requests with all of the other requests as we usually do earlier in the year. So I apologize for the tight timeline, but we did get their request in, and we are looking for approval for use of roads and staff time to be able to have this parade happen. And I'll leave it with you.
Thank you for that report. Does anyone have any questions, concerns? Deputy Mayor Weiser.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder if there was a time. I didn't see the time on this report.
No, I didn't see it in there either. My understanding is though, they're planning a parade from the Legion at 12:30.
12:30.
With the ceremonies take place at Cenotaph at 1. That's for Port Burwell, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, though it's not, it is somewhat related. There are ceremonies at 11 o'clock in Vienna as well. Any other questions, concerns? All right. Be it resolved that report CL 1223 regarding municipal assistance, Port Burwell Legion Remembrance Day Parade be received for information, and that the proposed road closures and use of municipal lands for the Port Burwell Legion Remembrance Day Parade be approved, subject to provision of liability insurance certificate in the amount of $2 million, naming the municipality of Bayham as additional assured. And that and that a staff presence for road closure purposes be approved with the ability to utilize the OPP as a backup, and if utilized, compensate from the municipal assistance budget. And that staff be directed to advise external agencies of the approved event and obtain county approval for the use of Robinson Street. Should that also be Wellington as well?
Your worship, if we can just change that to county roads.
That would be better. Yeah. Okay. And that staff be directed to further coordinate details of the events with the event contacts, and that the municipality of Bayham reserves the right to revoke said approvals at any time for any reason. Okay, with that amendment, just to include county roads, do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Chilcott, Councillor Emerson will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item C, report CAO 5323 by Thomas Thayer, CAO, regarding extension of site plan agreement, John and Jennifer Clausen, 9253 Plank Road, SPA 0621. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the site plan agreement with Classen was entered into last fall. Based upon the discussions with the proponents, they were to have the works done in September. However, they have reached out to the municipality requesting an extension The extension was requested in August due to certain material shortages, which have impacted their ability to finish catch basin installation and paving works. In accordance with their request, we have entered into an amending agreement specific to section 26 of the original agreement, which essentially changes the completion date until May 31st of next year. So this gives them an extra 7 or 8 months to finish the project, which, as we understand it, is more than enough time, but we wanted to give them a little bit of leeway in case there are additional delays. So this is before council for information purposes only, as the CAO is delegated authority for site plan control approval. I am available for questions.
All right, thank you for that, Thomas. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Okay. Resolution reads that report CAO 5323 regarding extension of site plan agreement, John and Jennifer Clausen, 9253 Plank Road, Stratfordville, application number SPA 0621, be received for information. Mover and seconder. Councillor Chilcott, Deputy Mayor Weiser, all in favor? That's carried. Report CAO 5423 by Thomas Thayer, CO, regarding site plan agreement Latimer 54-296 Heritage Line, SPA 0223.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So once more, the CAO is delegated site plan approval authority. So this is an agreement entered into with Craig and Elizabeth Latimer for expansion of their shop at 54296 Heritage Line. The application was received in June, and we deemed it complete in early October as they submitted the requisite stamped engineer drawings. The request is 2 proposed additions to replace and enlarge an existing storage building and to expand the shop. And other site alterations are also required to ensure fire route on the west side of the rear of the building, adding a swale to address drainage. So we have executed this agreement with the Latimers to proceed. I do believe now that they're in the process of obtaining a building permit. The site plan control application and executed agreement are attached for council's consideration, and I am available for questions.
Okay, thank you for that report. Does anyone have any questions? All right. The motion reads that report CAO 5423 regarding site plan agreement Latimer at 54-296 Heritage Line, Stratfordville, application number SPA 0223 be received for information. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Froese and Councillor Emerson will second. All in favor? That's carried. Item E, report CAO 5523 by Thomas Thayer, CAO, regarding benefits and costs, blue flag status at the Port Burwell East Beach.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For council's recall, report CL 0123 provided a committee policy and committee terms of reference, inclusive of the Waterfront Advisory Committee and a draft bylaw 2023-014 to establish a Waterfront Advisory Committee. So this is on February the 16th. The committee was established and approved by bylaw, terms of reference being provided. So we were able to establish the committee. They're on their 3rd meeting now. Things are going really well. Out of their first meeting, they provided a recommendation to council regarding a couple of matters. One of which being consideration of the benefits and cost implications associated with blue flag status. So council provided this motion regarding a report back to council on June the 1st. So this is that report, as the application for 2024 blue flag status is due on November the 16th. So it either comes forward today or it comes forward on November the 2nd. And to make sure that staff front run this enough and have enough leeway to get an application in, we brought it forward at this meeting. Some of this information in the report was provided by the manager of Public Works, who is also here to answer questions pertaining to costs and operations at the beach. I will take council through the report and some of the costs that I've identified. So the first one is the application cost. The application is through Swim Drink Fish as our conduit for the municipality to Blue Flag International. The application cost is $1,250 a year, and this is invoiced early in the applicable fiscal year. So if we apply in 2024, we'll receive an invoice in February or March of 2024 for the application. As a requirement also, the municipality has to submit, or at least when it applied for blue flag status originally, had to submit a package of documentation submitted to Swim Drink Fish regarding how the municipality intended to meet the blue flag standards and requirements identified in their mandate. One of those pieces of documentation is an environmental health and safety survey. So this has to be updated every 3 to 4 years. Our next update for this is scheduled for 2024 in the springtime. The cost to complete the survey is approximately $2,500, and this helps us maintain our status in future years. So upfront, the cost for the 2024 application is about $3,750. Second set of costs to identify are East Beach seasonal expenses. So the municipality in 2023 spent a shade over $61,000 at the beach. And this involves not only the contractor time and associated utilities and porta potty rentals, et cetera, but it is regular staff time and machine time to groom the beach to the standard required of blue flag, and to replace any materials or maintain any materials that may become damaged or stolen, for instance, during operating season. So Manager of Public Works has provided an expenses document. It's attached to this report for consideration. I would also note that that attachment does identify $15,000 in revenue, and this is by way of our agreement for a food truck at the beach. So we receive 5 months of the year, $3,000 for that. So that's gross 15,000 in the other direction. So in discussion with the Manager of Public Works, if council chose to move away from the blue flag status, there are very few areas in which to possibly save money, or put another way, retaining the status does not require the municipality to incur much additional costs for the East Beach. Majority of costs are associated with ensuring the East Beach and area are clean. So when combining the contractor costs and staff machine time for beach raking and seasonal cleanup, the municipality incurs approximately $41,743. Without the blue flag status, there may be the opportunity to reduce costs by approximately $8,000. But the East Beach will still have to be cleaned at either end of the season. The main washroom facilities would still have to be maintained regularly. And because the East Beach will still continue to attract patrons regardless of its status, which necessitates a certain level of service to ensure aesthetics and safety. And while not quantified in the attachment, there's any staff time required to arrange and attend educational programming required to maintain the status. So while lesser costs associated with the East Beach, and while these are a lesser cost, arrangement of an attendance at, say, flag raisings, cleanups, and other applicable sessions is approximately $1,000 in staff time. So ultimately, it is difficult to ascribe a specific dollar value to the general beach expenses that would be required for over and above a level of service for blue flag status. This value is likely less than 20% of costs generally incurred. With respect to water testing, this is a very nominal cost. So we have an arrangement through Southwestern Public Health. They test weekly for E. coli, but they pick up the cost. So there's no expense to BAM in this regard. And for the Manager of Capital Projects, we expend approximately $250 a year for monthly streptococcal testing through SGS Labs in London. So again, small cost here. Then there are the staff and administrative costs associated with the Waterfront Advisory Committee. The committee meets 4 times a year at minimum and discusses matters once per quarter, including educational programming, budget recommendations, bylaw enforcement, and parking matters. To ensure proper conduct of the WAC, including agenda, memo, and minute prep, staff attendance at quarterly meetings, staff estimate costs for this at approximately $3,200 per year. So that is a general overview of the costs incurred for the beach and for blue flag status. The benefits are more difficult to quantify, because we don't do a lot of data collection when it comes to how individuals hear about the beach, what they know of the blue flag status, whether it impacts their usership of our beach. We are aware that the beach has grown quite markedly in popularity, as evidenced by the instances of parking calls to the East Beach, particularly during long weekends. However, it is generally unknown if the increasing beach usage is due to blue flag status or because it is seen as a viable nearby alternative to other large beaches that offers free parking. And it is assumed that this could be a draw, but again, we have no way of quantifying that. We do not collect data on those. So another benefit is that the blue flag status does allow the municipality to more widely advertise its beach and its status on its communication avenues or through other means such as Elgin County tourism. And the beach with status does guarantee a certain level of service to any beach goer. So this is a benefit to beach users as it identifies a beach with quality amenities and regular oversight regarding safety, first aid, environmental protection, and programming and water quality. So if the East Beach were to lose its status, whether by council direction or unsuccessful application, council would still have to maintain a high level of service by choice rather than by necessity. Council may choose not to do this and may strategically reduce service at its discretion should status not be sought or received in a calendar year. This has been alluded to in the above section regarding costs. And the final benefit to note is the community interest and involvement in the East Beach by way of the Waterfront Advisory Committee. So while there are staff costs to consider, the WAC functions as a committee of council and encourages community application and involvement in recommendations that are intended to be presented to council for consideration. And historically, this previous versions of the Waterfront Advisory Committee did not function as smoothly as they could have, nor with defined reporting structures. So now that we have a community committee that has been established by bylaw with the terms of reference and is functioning as a dedicated committee of council, providing recommendations in one direction and providing community involvement and volunteerism through this mechanism that comes as a sort of a broader benefit to the Blue Flag program. So we're not recommending anything in particular up front, but Mr. Mayor, I would leave it with you and council to discuss. And Steve and I are both here to answer any questions regarding the expenses. However, given that the number or the value of expenses over and above, say, a base level of service, if you were to take out, say, application fees, et cetera, we would support council's direction to continue with the Blue Flag status and application. That's how this report is being brought forward. And we'll wait for council's direction on the matter, but we would be happy with moving forward with either venture. Leave it with you.
Thank you for that report, Thomas. Questions, comments? Councilor Emerson.
Through this, Mayor. Since it's hard to quantify how many extra people come because of the Blue Flag status, and there's no way to quantify any additional revenue attributed to Blue Flag status for businesses in town, I think we've missed that whole portion in the report of if we're driving business at struggling businesses, restaurants, whatever in town, it's already kind of recovering from COVID still. And so, and the cost is negligible. I think that without that knowledge, it's kind of prudent to move forward with the Blue Flag.
Additional comments? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we just had our Waterfront Advisory Committee meeting just this past week. I do think that I see some benefits to some of the discussions that we were having, some of the opportunities that are coming up in the next year. for, for our input and for educational purposes. And I do think that some of the pieces of the requirement of the blue flag have been beneficial to the community. And I do see some of the feedback, particularly with the youth that have attended some of the sessions, has been very positive. And I think that's contributing to an overall level of volunteerism and engaging our youth. And I would support continuing for at least for the next year, just to maybe take a little more stock in what's happening down there and having a little more input and monitoring it a little bit closer to see how this program is contributing to our community. So I would be in favor of continuing.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? I'm not hearing anyone thinking that we should discontinue the blue flag participation. Okay, and I would agree that the costs are relatively negligible. It's interesting to note that before we were blue flag, we were inching closer and closer all the time, and it just took a little extra step to get there. Now that we're there, I still think that there's some benefit personally to maintaining that status. So there may come a time when we might have to do something with this, but at this point, I think we should maintain its status. Okay. Okay, you got some direction, Megan?
Through your worship, yes, I can add to that motion for submitting the application for 2024. Did we want to speak to any future years or keep it to only 2024 right now?
It's an annual requirement, I think. Gives council an opportunity each year to revisit.
Okay. So we have that report CAO 55/23 regarding benefits and costs, blue flag status at the Port Burwell East Beach be received for information, and that staff be directed to submit the 2024 blue flag application.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Chilcott, Counselor Emerson will second. All in favor? That's carried. Report CAO 56/23, Thomas Thayer, CAO Road Maintenance Agreement, Elgin County.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to preface, myself and the manager of Public Works are both here, as we were both involved to varying degrees in discussions on a new roads maintenance agreement for Elgin County lower tiers and Elgin County. So in 2018, the municipality entered into its last road maintenance agreement with the county. That was done by way of bylaw 2018-008. That agreement is agreement number 0651 in our files and expired officially on December 31st of 2022. Through 2021 and 2022, however, municipal representatives have been in regular discussion with other Elgin County lower tier representatives and Elgin County and Strategy Corp that were retained as a consultant to lead discussions amongst various representatives in the county regarding a revised road maintenance agreement. So review and discussion of RMA language continued through 2023 with dialogue between lower tiers and the county, and with all parties seeking their own legal review of the file. And recognizing that the RMA covers 8 area municipalities and complete consensus on aspects of the revised language is not always possible. To the extent able, the language from the Strategy Corp discussions and dialogue between the lower municipal partners and the county have been incorporated, with lower tier municipal partners generally agreeable to the content of the draft agreement. The draft agreement is attached to this report. So on August 9th of this year, County Council received a report from the county's general counsel, Stephen Gibson, regarding this agreement, and it was positively received and approved. Direction was given at the time to send the individualized agreements to the lower tiers. So we were in receipt of that in September. with respect to our agreement, I've identified in the report certain areas that have been changed and that council may wish to comment on or discuss. So one of the items that was identified explicitly is culvert and drainage facilities within the scope of the work. This is something that was implied and some work had been done in that regard by lower tiers in support of county infrastructure under the last agreement. This is a way of formalizing it. There was a section that established guiding principles for contract interpretation and implementation under section 1.1 to give some additional context as to the intent of the agreement between the county and all lower tiers. This is another 5-year term. So this agreement will be deemed to be in place, force and effective January the 1st of this year. And it will go through December 31st of 2027, at which time hopefully we have a revised version to bring forward. Sections 4.6 and 4.11 speak to repair and maintenance standards per the applicable minimum maintenance standard. And if there's no minimum maintenance standard, then as outlined in Schedule C of the agreement. 5.1 and Schedule E speak to annual RMA allocations. These are specified with calculated monthly payments. And 5.1 and 5.2 make clear that there is monthly invoicing and quarterly and annual reporting in keeping with Strategy Corp recommendations. So there is a bit of an extra reporting burden to staff under this new agreement. However, generally speaking, we have been fairly progressive with the way that and thorough with the way that we've handled our reporting. So we don't anticipate as big of an impact as it might have to other municipalities in Elgin. However, there still will be a staff time impact as we have to report more detailed staff time, machine time, et cetera, which requires more detailed record keeping. Section 5.4 is guiding principles for preparation and delivery of service invoices. This is from the county to us, or the county to us, Steve, or is it us to the county for the invoice? Yeah, us to the county. And then section 13 schedules J1, J2 establish an operations and governance committee, including terms of reference for both. So this is a new addition, and this came out of some of the Strategy Corp recommendations to establish committees for operations, which would be the roads operations supervisors and public works managers in the areas. And governance committee would be CAOs, ensuring that the RMA is functioning year over year and that there are no major issues that arise. And various schedules have been updated to include an updated detailed listing of roads, bridges, culverts, drainage facilities, detailed scope of services to be provided, including salt management and deer crossing signage, formatting of invoices and reports, which again, this is a carryover from the previous agreement. There's not much change there. And the terms of references for the applicable committees, which is a new inclusion. So the RMA does include some other minor changes, but we do not have any major concerns about the changes to the RMA in general. Getting into some of the impacts. So the primary impact to BAM's operations is the additional administrative burden placed on staff, primarily for reporting, inspections, and invoices. The formal addition of county culvert and drainage facilities in the RMA will increase the operational resource draw on public works to address and administer these functions as flow-throughs for the county. And the additional quarterly inspection requirements for county infrastructure and more detailed invoicing requirements regarding staff and machine time will impact staff time required to steward the files and report to the county on a monthly basis to ensure that we're being compensated accordingly. So to mitigate these and associated financial impacts, it's expected that staff will be engaging the county regarding opportunities for joint procurement of homogeneous services over the entirety of Elgin County. So we all have a gravel program. We all do things like line painting, for instance. We should be looking at these components as a joint procurement to save value per unit rather than going at it alone. And the 2020 service delivery review put on and received by Elgin County is very supportive of this venture. So it's expected that in 2024, staff will be pushing harder on this from a procurement perspective to see if there are ways to make the cost more efficient for BAM and that we are subsidizing less or not subsidizing at all any of the works being done in stewardship of Elgin County infrastructure. So with that, the draft agreement has a signature block for Bayham for the CAO. So we would recommend that the CAO be directed to execute the RMA as presented and that the RMA be formally adopted by bylaw. And this would be provided to Elgin County upon resolution and signature. Mr. Mayor, I will leave it with you and council to discuss, and myself and the manager of Public Works are available for any questions on this file.
All right, thank you very much for that report. This has been a long time coming, the RMA update. Any questions from council members? Any concerns? No concerns. Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry about that. Perhaps just a comment, if I may, and I spoke with Thomas about this earlier. Just a comment that I'm surprised that the county, with the addition of the culverts and drainage, is we're only seeing that nominal increase of 4%. So I do recognize the additional staff time and cost associated with that, and would be interesting to see if there's anything we can do in terms of additional compensation. Just a comment.
No, thank you for that. And I think the intention is that this is going to be tracked by staff and probably encourage our other municipal partners to come to a more common reporting mechanism, and to ensure that the works on the county infrastructure is being done and that the local municipal partner is being fairly compensated for it. That's the intention of this. And it's somewhat unique. There are only 2 jurisdictions in Ontario that there is not an upper tier public works department. Elgin is the major one. Yeah. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. Motion reads a report CAO 5623 regarding the road maintenance agreement Elgin County be received for information, and that council directs the chief administrative officer to execute the roads maintenance agreement between the municipality of Bayham and Elgin County, and that the appropriate authorizing bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Emerson will move. Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Yep. Moving on with the bylaws, section 14. We have 3. Bylaw number 2023-078 being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 35. Bylaw number 2023-079 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Bayham and PBR Excavating Inc. for the Hampton Drain Works. And bylaw number 2023-080 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a county roads maintenance agreement between the corporation municipality of Bayham and the corporation of the county of Elgin. Any questions on any of the bylaws? Then I will need a mover and a seconder for the following: that bylaw numbers 2023-78, 2023-79, and 2023-80 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, Councillor Chilcott, Deputy Mayor Weisler. All in favor? That's carried. Brings us down to section 17, the confirming bylaw. That confirming bylaw number 2023-081 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Chilcott. Councillor Emerson. All in favor? Carried. And finally, the adjournment motion. That council meeting be adjourned at 8:49 PM. Councillor Froese and Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? Carried. We are adjourned. Thank you for joining us this evening.